myself, my name is O, H to the O-V. I used to move snowflakes by the OC. I guess even back then you can call me CEO of the ROC. Fresh out the frying pan into the fire. I be the music man's #1 supplier. Flying in a piece of paper bearing my name. Got the hottest chick in the game wearing my chain. That's right, not DOC, but similar to the letters. No one can do it better. You can blame Sean, but I ain't inventing the game. I just rolled the dice trying to get some change. I done came through the block, but I ain't inventing the game. Still alive, it's in my veins. Only God can check me. Only God can check me, so I'm gone.
Play it day one with Game Pass.
Some say Formula One isn't really a sport. What sport has stadiums that span seas? Or revels in driving rain, blazing sun, and blackest night? What sport makes even Vegas stop and stare? Sure, we have passing and curveballs and even the odd dive. But for us, the back of the net is no place to be. Breakpoint is rarely an advantage, and halftime, we do it in no time. Our kit saves lives. Our goals change futures. Our slam dunks echo around the world. And our big game, we do it 23 times a year. This is no ordinary sport. This is Formula One.
Driver, start your
Well, Kyle Busch getting the helmet off. Kyle, the well-documented move to Richard Childress Racing. You've been up front every time you've been in this car already. It only took 2 points races till you get your first win with these guys.
Yeah, coulda, shoulda, woulda, right, last week. But no, I think it's just phenomenal. It's I can't thank Richard and Judy enough. I can't thank Austin for calling me and getting me talking and getting me this opportunity to be able to come over here to RCR and be a part of Chevrolet and be able to race this Lucas Oil Camaro today, to be able to put it up front like that, man. The guys did a great job. Randall, everybody that has worked so hard during the off season. We've done a lot of sim stuff. We've done a lot of testing in general, just with trying to get up to speed, systems and all that sort of stuff. But man, there's nothing more rewarding than being able to go to victory lane. So want to give a shout out to my wife and son and daughter back at home. I miss you guys. I'll see you tonight. And then, also Rowdy Energy, appreciate them. I need some 3-Chief for my hands, man. I death gripped that wheel throughout the second half of that race, but we held on, man. We got it today.
Kyle, you've won a lot of big races through your career, but given everything that went in with the move and the change in teams, where does this one rank?
I think it ranks high, just because it ranks to the fact of I can do it. I never doubted myself, but sometimes you do. You kind of get down on it. You wonder what's going on and what's happening, and you put yourself in a different situation, and you're able to come out here and reward your guys. It's not about me always winning, but it's always about the guys. I've been with a lot of great people that have given me a lot of great opportunities in my career, so it's awesome to be able to reward them. So you're going to enjoy it for sure. And hopefully there's many more left to go.
Kyle Busch, your winner in California.
Good evening, race fans. Welcome to the Hoobazoo Radio Network and welcome to the Drafting the Circuits program. My name is Frank Santorowski. I'll be your host for the next hour as we talk about everything racing. Joining me in the studio, Richard Uden, Luis Torres, Levi. Fellas, how we doing this week?
Evening. Good, thank you.
Jet lag, but doing all right.
Right. I know you've been off to Fontana, so we'll get to that in a moment. First off, I want to thank Sinister One Productions for producing our show. I want to thank Formula One and Forza Motorsports for the clips there. And that last clip you saw, Kyle Busch. We talked last week about Kyle Busch and that he feels like there needs to be a sense of urgency to win a race to prove that his move to RCR was not a mistake. But here we are, 2 races into the regular season, plus the clash there. He's been a factor in all the races, and now he's won a race early on. Some folks were surprised. Some of the folks that were not surprised are some of the former champions in the series, most notably Kyle Larson and Chase Elliott, who were like, yeah, what did you expect? The guy's one of the best. And these are guys that drive against him week in and week out. So now, Louise, you spent your weekend at Fontana at the Speedway. So run down the race for me a little bit.
Yeah, how about that race weekend? Let's see. Apparently, the state of Washington decided to arrive in Southern California this weekend. You had rain, snow, hailing, flood, sleet. It was straight out of when I picked up my credentials and all of that jazz. It looked like straight out of a Twister movie at one point. But it was a doubleheader Sunday due to the fact that the rain and snow postponed the Xfinity race. But the Cup event put on a heck of a show in the sense of you saw a lot of comers and goers. But at one point, Ross Chastain and Daniel Suarez looked like $1 million out there, especially Ross leading a good majority of the race. But Kyle Busch was lurking in the shadows. And I said this last week that you put Kyle Busch, who's usually really good at Fontana, put him in the 8 car. That was a strong car when Reddick drove it a year ago. It's just a lethal combination. And lo and behold, as the last one down, and he had to overcome a pit penalty as well, mind you. When he was back into the mix, it was a heck of a battle between Kyle and Ross, where some people see those two as the top aggressive drivers. And Kyle and his crew got the job done when they needed him most and got him out ahead. And then once Michael McDowell pitted, there was basically no looking back. And Kyle went on to win. First win with RCR. First win in a Chevy since 2007. His 5th at Fontana. 61st career win. And now he is the sole possessor of as the all-time winningest driver in terms of consecutive years. He has now won a Cup race, at least one, each of the last 19 straight seasons. The old record was Richard Petty's 8 at 18. So
that's pretty phenomenal. You think about it. It's how long he's been at the top of the sport there. You know what I mean? Now, Lee, I want to get to you a little bit because you and I were having an interesting conversation off the air about Kyle Busch and how, like, personally, some of your feelings towards him have kind of changed over the years. And I don't think you're the only one who's kind of warmed up to Kyle Busch in recent years, particularly now that he's moved over to RCR, because there were always comparisons with him to a former RCR driver. But I'll let you elaborate on that, because I think you had some really good thoughts.
No, I thank you. I think for years and years I've said it, and a lot of other people have said it, the similarities between Rowdy and Dale Sr. it's incredible. They both are, they take no holds barred on the racetrack. They do what they got to do to get W's in their cars into victory lane. And I mean, to see Rowdy do that, 2 races in and he's already clinched the spot for the playoff for the championship. It was only writing on the wall. It was about time. When Rowdy was with Joe Gibbs, I was not a fan. Now that he's made the switch over to RCR, definitely taking a little bit better look at him. He's got the talent. He it's proven. And like you said, the past champions, everybody says, what did you expect? The guy's a proven track record is amazing. And he is. He's a lot like Senior. He's got that attitude, and that's what RCR wants. That's what Richard Childress was looking for. Somebody to go out there and do what needed to be done to keep that name going for the event. And I think, it's going to be a rowdy season this year. I think we're going to see some good things out of him.
Absolutely, yeah, and to think that he's been at the top level for 19 years now,
yeah.
And he's still got a lot of good years left. I mean, you know what I mean? He could, he's already won the most NASCAR sanctioned races in history, if I'm not mistaken, right? And so, I mean, he can pad that record or break other records. Certainly, there's no signs of him slowing down, no signs of him stopping. And he's not that old. He's still relatively young as far as like Lee and I are concerned. He's older than you, Louise. So, Louise, I wanted to say something because you actually made me giggle when you were talking about the racer. I just wanted to throw this out there because I think it's funny. But you said a couple of these guys look like $1 million. I'm like, oh, so they look sorely underfunded.
No,
I know what you meant, but that's what popped into my head. So
I mean, if Kyle Busch is to be like Denny Hamlin said in his podcast that Kyle Busch, the man he wanted to stay at Joe Gibbs Racing, could have put him under the team,
absolutely,
the whole organization. Yeah. So that's a different story for another time. But look what he's done so far. Had they decided to just let Suarez get a chance to keep the car rolling, he would have also been stuck anyway. We would be talking about Kyle Busch maybe being 2 for 2 this season. And not just Kyle Busch, as you look at RCR, it seems like the impact is already instant in the positive light. I mean, so far, Austin Dillon has racked up some noteworthy runs. Is he in the same level as Kyle? Absolutely not. But I'm curious to see how they do it. And as far as when Kyle Busch runs in the Xfinity series this season with colleague, I'm curious to see how they do as well, how he does with that team. Because with this opportunity now he is with Chevrolet, it could open some new doors to see how well he can do with those organizations and those cars. So far, we've seen he's done really good in Cup, and if it's gonna be like 2008 when he first joined Joe Gibbs, he's gonna look out. But the question is, as we go to the postseason, will history repeat itself like it was in 2008, where he was dominant in a regular, but could not execute in the postseason? That's gonna be the big mystery in months' time.
It's not just him; it's the team as well, isn't it? It's that. What experience does that organization have of running, in the playoffs and deep into the playoffs and going for championships? It's pretty light in reality. And one thing I wanted to mention, and, obviously I was heavily involved in that organization for 3 years, but outside of Reddick's road course wins, I know they've had other wins, in recent years here and there, but this is the first time I can remember an RCR car winning an oval race, the bread and butter of NASCAR, on pure pace since I was involved, 8 years. I know when I was there, we won a couple of races. We won the Coke 600 and Newman won a race in Phoenix, but they're all strategy calls on fuel mileage races. They were never pure pace. It's probably going back to the Kevin Harvick days when, RCR won a race on an oval on pure being the fastest car. And that's not, they haven't suddenly found a decent car. That, to my mind, puts the drivers they've had for the last 10 years in pretty poor light. This guy's rocked up first real serious race. I'm not counting Daytona as a serious racer. First real race, and he wins the damn thing. How does that make the laundry list of drivers that RCR have had in the last 10 years look? I think it reflects pretty poorly on those guys in consideration.
Or even the ones 25 years outside of Earnhardt and Harvick, when you look at Jeff Green, Robbie Gordon to some minor extent, Mike Skinner. And part of it, some of them, like with Skinner's case, injuries really derailed his Cup career, but others, they just clicked at some tracks, but more often than that, they just could not click. So I am curious to see how the dynamic of Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon will do as the season goes on. So far, the impact has been nothing but positive, but going forward and these other diverse racetracks, that's the big question mark. I'd like to see how both of them will do.
I think
Yeah.
Austin.
No,
I think Austin. Yeah, go ahead, Rich.
No, you go.
I think Austin Dillon's in a prime position because he has the winningest driver in NASCAR as his teammate, and all Austin Dillon has to do is just sit back, watch, and learn. I mean, he doesn't have any pressure on his shoulders. He's just a driver now. He's not the face of an organization. That's Rowdy's job, and that's huge. It takes so much weight off of Austin Dillon. He could just drive. He doesn't have to worry about being the face of RCR. And I think Austin he's just going to sit back and suck it all in like a sponge, and he's going to come out on the other side a much better driver than he is right now, for sure. Definitely.
If you can learn from it, if you can use that tool, then for sure it's how he reacts to it. I mean,
yep.
He's had an opportunity to learn from some hard drivers in the past, with Ryan Newman being there, who, back in his day was as fast as they came, and that didn't do much good for him. Austin's one of these drivers who needs the group around him to tell him how good he is for him to perform. He's one of those style drivers, and which is very different from Kyle. Kyle calls a spade a spade. If he doesn't like something or something's not good, he'll tell that, and he'll tell Austin that he's not pulling his weight. And it'll be interesting to see how that dynamic and that relationship grows. But it's for my money now. Austin has real pressure on him for the first time. I think Reddick put pressure on him last year, and you saw Reddick's performances, especially at the road courses, really put Austin in the shade at times. And we'll see how that relationship grows. But it's going to be an interesting one for sure, as you say. There's two ways he's going to go. He's either going to react to it well and going to raise his game, or it's going to, I don't want to use the word sulk and run away, but he's got his reality TV shows, and he's I'm sure at one point in the future his name's going to be over the door of that shop. So it'd be interesting to see how he reacts.
I wonder if that show's still around.
Did it renew the second season?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I was gonna say, if it's not that, then no, I'm not going there because I'll talk about it in the reality TV show podcast.
There we go.
All right, yeah. So let's talk about some of the other things coming out of Fontana. So Joey Logano managed to piss everybody in the field off. So it depends on who you believe what happened there, but they're saying he brake checked the field. Now we have a longer restart zone, or if it gives you a little more flexibility of when to hit that gas. But it's an old short driver's trick to brake check the field, make everybody kind of check up, and then get a run on them, right? Something that really kind of has no place on a 2-mile racetrack. Although, we've seen it before. We've seen, I remember Will Power was accused of it once at an IndyCar race, checking up the field on a road course. But Joey says check the data. He didn't do it. But nobody's buying that. So which one of you guys wants to chime in on this and talk about the new longer restart zone, and if this is going to be a continuing problem through the year, or if it's just Joey being Joey?
It's hard to tell right now, 2 races in with that longer restart. So obviously we saw what they claim as the biggest wreck in Fontana in the Cup Series, which is amusing because 2003, and then the fall race where they had that one wreck in turn 1 that brought a red flag. I was surprised that one didn't have more cars, but I'm curious to see how it goes as the season goes on with different drivers in different situations, because right now it sounds like it's more of a Logano thing. So much so that Logano apparently ran over a cat. Some people want to put Blaney in that thing. So it was a weird day for the Penske camp.
Yeah, let's talk about the cat. That was kind of weird too, right? Because we've seen a couple things. We've seen birds get struck by race cars, right? I remember a guy running over a fox one time. And of course, most tragically, Cristiano D'Amato hit a deer, which ended his career and left him in the hospital for quite some time. But a black cat crossing your path is said to be bad luck, and that people think Blaney hit the cat. How the cat got on the track, I don't know. But so you got to wonder. So if a black cat crosses your path, that's bad luck, right? But if a black cat is in your path and you just run the damn thing over, does that absolve you from the bad luck? I guess we'll have to see how Blaney's season goes now. So, but
Yeah,
that
I
was
couldn't.
that
Oh,
was
yeah.
to me.
I wasn't around because I was on the.
Yeah, that's a new one. Black cat on the track. So
Yeah,
I'm surprised
we've
they
seen a
didn't.
lot of
I'm
stuff.
surprised they didn't stop the race, because you've seen in Formula One, especially in Montreal, when the old groundhogs or whatever they are, beavers or whatever they are, get on the track in Canada, they'll like throw a red flag instantly, because imagine what bad PR that is to run an animal over. And NASCAR like, nah, debris caution.
Yeah.
you go shovel up the dead cat. Yeah. So
Yeah. I was amazed that they didn't like red flag it, just from a PR perspective.
Well,
that would have been the weirdest red flag of all time. Where
everybody would talk about it now rather than somebody mowing over a cat, which is not exactly great PR for the sport.
Yeah.
I mean, did they stop the game when Randy Johnson threw that fastball and crushed that seagull like back in the day?
It was a little bit late by then, wasn't it? I think the damage had been done.
Yeah, well, I would say the damage was done to that cat as well. So,
but there's photographs of it doing its thing.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, you see those things occasionally. I remember there was a squirrel on the track at Indy one time. I remember that, and they yellow flagged the practice till they get that thing to get off the track. But you get an animal there scared to death, doesn't know how to get out. You got the walls all the way around. So yeah, and you got to be wondering, well, how did I get here? So but anyway, I digress.
We'll save that for our animal welfare podcast.
Yeah. All right, so Louise, we also had an Xfinity race. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, John Hunter Nemechek won that one. So let's talk about the Xfinity a little bit.
Yeah, after the rain and snow postponed the race to Sunday, they only got like a couple pace laps in before they pulled the plug. After the Cup race, we had the Xfinity competition, which was officially the last 2-mile race ever. Not Cup. Xfinity closed the show. And for a while, Cole Custer was looking like the same as he was a year ago, just dominating the race. And then Austin Dillon and himself got into it in turn one. It damaged Dillon's car and pretty much derailed Custer's night, because unlike all the other guys like Josh Berry and Sheldon Creed and Justin Allgaier, we know Creed ended up wrecked at the end. Custer was trapped and could never recover to get back where he was. And like the Cup race, there's a lot of comer and goers in that one. Different variations of pit strategies and the cautions coming out at the perfect time for a lot of them. Some benefited from it more than others. But in the end, it came down to John Hunter Nemechek with yet another strong start to the season. He finished second at Daytona. Now he got his third career Xfinity Series win. And people are saying that Custer always going to win 7 or 8 races. Don't underestimate John Hunter Nemechek in a Gibbs car. Don't underestimate him. I think if anything, it's going to come down to those two guys, and they're going to kind of carry the Xfinity torch that guys like Cindric, Gregson, and Gibbs left behind. And all the as well.
Yeah, John Hunter's a good driver. Yeah, so I wouldn't underestimate him at all. So we are off to, is it Phoenix we're off to next? Is that correct?
Vegas.
No, we're Vegas.
Oh, Vegas. That's right. I knew it was somewhere out west, but I'll have
Las Vegas.
Couple guesses to get it right. So Vegas, yeah, cookie cutter, 1.5 mile oval. So we'll be there in a week's time. We've got a big weekend of racing coming up. So this weekend, in addition to the Cup in Vegas, we've got the opening rounds of both Formula One and IndyCar. And we'll get into talking about those two series next. But before we do that, let's go ahead and make our picks for Vegas. I'll start with you, Lee. Who do you tend to like for Vegas?
I'm rooting for Ross Chastain this weekend in Vegas. I think he won stage 1 and 2 in Fontana. Thought he was going to pull out a W. But I think he's going to carry that momentum over into Vegas. I think it's going to be a good track for him, and we'll see what happens.
Okay, now Louise.
I'm going to go with Larson in this one.
Yeah, good pick. I'm going to go with Chase Elliott. which is another decent, safe pick, and so now that we've picked all those guys, watch Kyle Busch go back to back, which would not surprise me either. And Richard, you'll abstain, right?
I think the Chevys look pretty strong. We're looking at some of the feedback from Atlanta, and the Chevys are the class of the field right now. They're going to take some beating in the first few weeks of the season, I think.
All right, well, good for Chevy. So, all right, so let's turn our attention to the IndyCar series, where we're going to be opening up the season at St. Petersburg, the world's fastest spring break, they like to call that. Course made out of partial airport runways, partial public roads. Been on the calendar for almost 2 decades now. I've been opening the season, for a while, other than pandemic year. But one of the drivers' favorite tracks. I mean, there are a couple guys that live down there. Elio's got a house down there. The late Dan Weldon had a house down there. They've actually named a portion of the track, one of the city streets there in St. Pete, is Dan Weldon Way. That's a popular place for race fans to go and get their picture taken while they're there enjoying the action at St. Pete. But so let's talk about the race a little bit. We've seen that in preseason testing. The Andretti cars were pretty much class of the field in nearly all of the tests there, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they'll be at the top when we come to the track, because you never know what guys are testing. They could be working on race setups. They could be, working on springs setup, and anything other than just trying to set a good time and be at the top of the chart. So I really feel like the most prolific winners at St. Pete have been historically Team Penske, and their lineup of Scott McLaughlin, Joseph Newgarden, and Will Power are 3 guys that are going to be tough to beat on that type of race course. So I would also look to McLaren. I think McLaren is going to give Penske, Ganassi, Andretti a run for their money. Honestly, it looks like the McLaren is going to be stacked this year between the drivers and the engineering help they picked up. I mean, McLaren's going in with Pato Ward, Alexander Rossi, Felix Rosenqvist in there. So you got 3 very capable guys. They've got new engineering help. They've got a heck of a budget to work with. So they're going to be strong. The Andretti cars look good at testing. I'm wondering at this point if it's Ganassi that's going to kind of slip behind those other guys, or Ganassi is historically good everywhere. Are they gonna pop to the front again? So it's going to be a very interesting season. The IndyCar series is always very, very competitive. The fields are always very, very deep. There's a lot of guys in there that can win. The qualifying time, a lot of times there's less than a second or just a second separating first from last in qualifying if you take off the last guy. But Jimmy Johnson's not around anymore, so we don't have to. Jeez.
Ouch.
Oh, poor Jimmy.
Dalton Kellett's still around?
Jimmy's doing fine.
No, Kellett is not around anymore.
No, Kellett. Yeah, Kellett. So Louise, tell me some of your thoughts on who we should keep an eye out for in IndyCar this year.
I'm curious to see how Kyle Kirkwood and Marcus Armstrong will do. Kirkwood last year, let's just face it, it was a throwaway year. It was it was just a least year where we get to see how he acclimates in 1 year IndyCar. But this season, I feel like, and a lot of people would probably agree to this is his true form rookie campaign where he could actually show why he was one of the top Road to Indy scholars that they ever had. He dominated everything in the junior categories, and now he's going with a competitive team in the 27 car. I think keep an eye on him. I feel like this is the year where we see him shine in the sport. And Armstrong, albeit he's not running the old bulls, he looked pretty good so far, and I'm wondering if he can actually win Rookie of the Year in spite of missing the races. We saw in 2021, Roman Grosjean was still in the mix, but the lack of ovals, with the exception of Gateway, obviously impacted his odds at Rookie of the Year. And
well, the one thing that's changed this year is that the Indianapolis 500 is no longer double points. Mm-hmm. So skipping Indy is not the huge disadvantage that than it once was. But still, I mean, if you look at it, even the guys that have finished last on the ovals will get 7 or 8 points, right? So, and you're talking, oh, we're gonna get 0 points for the 4 races, or is it 5?
It's the Iowa doubleheader, Texas,
yeah, 2 races in Iowa, Texas, and Gateway.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So there's 5 races where Armstrong is going to get 0 points. So that really, it almost puts it out of reach for him, but it's not impossible if he's finishing well ahead of the other guys during the races. But I think when it comes to Rookie of the Year, you've got to look at Stingray Robb, who's going to be in the coin car, just for the simple fact that he is running the full season, and Benjamin Peterson is in the Foyt car. So you have to say, sorry, Benjamin, that the Foyt team has not improved even by adding Santino Ferruccio. They were still at the bottom of all the charts during the thing there. And the other rookie is August Canapino, and he's the one you're going to have to watch out for too. He's the unknown. He's the unknown here, but Yukos is still one of the smaller, less funded teams. But I feel like Canapino is a heck of a talent. He's got Callum Eilert in there as a teammate, and I think those 2 guys will work well and help one another out. And of course, Ricardo Juncos, I mean, he knows how to run a winning team. He's had much success in junior formulas. So, the step up to IndyCar is a big step, mind you. But he's 3 years into it now, maybe 4, where he had to, I think he had sat out a season or only did a partial at one point in time.
He sat out in 20. At 21, they arrived late in the season with Eilert. At 22 was their first true full year.
Right. So now this will be their first year with two full-time cars. And of course, they've got the partner in there, Hollinger, who really helps in that budget department there. So we'll have to see how they perform. But I mean, it's hard to, when you just look at everything, you've got to take Armstrong out of the picture because he's not running the full series, right? You take Canapino is a bit of an unknown, right? Hugo's team is up in the air. So your smart money's on Stingray Robb. Who's going to be on our show in a couple weeks, by the way. I'm pretty excited about that. But he's with Dale Coyne, and Dale Coyne can put out winning cars sometime. Justin Wilson was running and winning. Mike Conway, Sebastian Bourdais.
Sato won. Did Sato win one of his 500s in the coin car?
No.
He came. He was in the mix, but never won it.
Sato won a race in a Foyt car, though, which is probably even a bigger accomplishment. Yeah, he won Long Beach in the Foyt car. Yeah, he's the last guy to win in a Foyt car. So, yeah, and then of course, Sato was driving all those ovals in the Ganassi car, which that you're gonna have to watch out for that. So, because when you put Sato in a good car at the Indianapolis 500. Hey, but we're getting a little ahead of ourselves talking about the Indy 500. So Lee, you're not a huge follower of IndyCar, right?
I am not.
But you do, you do enjoy it somewhat. So, I mean, do you have any thoughts on what you're looking forward to this season?
Like you said, Rookie of the Year, Stingray. Looking forward to his sophomore season, so to say, and what he does behind the wheel on a full-time circuit this year. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm definitely paying more attention, obviously, because I'm here and I have to, hold my own with you guys and your IndyCar expertise. So I'll be definitely watching with a different set of eyes this year. But I think, like I said, Stingray, I'm anxious to see what he's got to do. Obviously the Andretti cars, what they're going to do this year, is always up for debate. So yeah. Be different, looking at it for a different set of eyes this year for sure.
Yeah, as I'll be looking at NHRA from a different set of eyes this year with you joining the show, talking about NHRA. So I'm kind of excited to learn more about that sport from you as you learn more about IndyCar from us. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Now, Richard, you looking forward to St. Pete?
Yeah, it's a great venue. You know, there's been some great races there over the years, and yeah, it'd be good to get everybody back up and running in the IndyCar series, as you mentioned there earlier, Frank. You know, there's so many teams. You know, you got basically 4 teams that you could throw a blanket over in terms of where you'd expect them to be. So there's a lot of unknowns. It's a lot like, you know, a lot of the other series, Formula One, where you've got a pretty good idea who's going to be winning the first few races. You know, you've got, he says, four of the powerhouse teams there in the sport now. You know, with McLaren joining the fray, and you know, it could be any of those half dozen drivers that could walk away winning the thing come Sunday afternoon. So yeah, always great racing, super fun, and yeah, really looking forward to it.
Yeah, so they've announced a couple of changes. They're going to change the way they do the clock during the qualifying, because I think in the past when they had a red flag, they would keep the clock running, and occasionally that would lead to guys not even be able to get a good fast lap out of a session. So they're going to change that up. So qualifying will be a little more, you know, be a little harder to get caught out, because we've seen that a couple of times where, you know, a guy hasn't laid down his flyer yet and somebody makes a mistake. We get a red flag, and then we go back to practice with maybe a minute left, which doesn't even give you, you know, you get time for maybe a warm up, maybe a flyer, maybe not. So we'll that'll improve the whole show, I think. And it'll be interesting to see how this goes at some of these races where they have just really packed schedules, like say Long Beach, where there's several different support series and there's racing, you know, all day long, and the schedules are really tight. And that was always kind of the excuse in the past why we need to have the you know, keep the clock running, is because the schedule's so tight. So I guess they've got some breathing room in those schedules now. So we'll see a little bit more of a fair qualifying session. Everybody should get at least a chance to get a flyer in during the qualifying. And the other change for this year is we're going to use the Guale tires, or the green sidewall tires, at most of the road course races. And again, they ran those last year at Nashville. The feedback was largely really good from the drivers. They don't perform much differently than the Reds, but it's as far as manufacture, it's more sustainable than, you know, rubber made from a rubber tree plant. This is made from a shrub that grows quickly in North American deserts, you know, Arizona and whatnot. So that's we'll be seeing a little more of that. And then the other change is they're going to use alternate tires on some ovals, where we've traditionally had just the black tires on the oval. Now they'll have the choice of the blacks for the reds on some of these ovals, including Iowa and Gateway. So that'll be kind of
the shorter ovals.
Yeah. So that'll be a different kind of strategy play to watch this year. So, but with no further ado, right, let's go ahead and make our picks for St. Pete. And I want to go first so I can pick Scott McLaughlin, because I think he's gonna be tough to beat this year. Everybody's talking about McLaren and Andretti and this and that, but you can never count Penske out. And I think you know by the end of the year, you know, Newgarden, Power, and McLaughlin are all going to have some new trophies in their cases. And maybe one of them will have the Astor Cup. But I'm going to say that Scotty Mack opens up the season with the win. Now, Richard, you could be next.
Let's go with Rossi.
Okay. Alexander Rossi for you. Louise?
I think here's another one I have a huge circle, and I feel like now that we know where he's going to be, Alex Palou, he was close a year ago. He was in that mix with McLaughlin. I feel like now that all that drama, for the time being, is done and over with, he's going to start the season like how he ended it last year, Laguna Seca in victory lane in the top step of the podium.
Okay, that's a good pick too. Yeah, we haven't talked much about Ganassi. Like I said, they've been quiet during the off season, but they're always a threat. So, and Lee, you care to try to take a stab at picking the winner for St. Pete?
Well, I was going to say Jimmy
Johnson. Not
Johnson.
racing anymore, by the way.
Yeah, I was going to say Jimmy Johnson. You're killing me, Richard. You're killing me. It's terrible. There goes my pick. No, I'm gonna go with Will Power this weekend. See what he's got. He's a strong driver. I'm gonna put my money on him this weekend. But darn it, I really wanted Jimmy Johnson to win.
Yeah.
Connor Daly is technically a NASCAR driver. You could have gone with him.
I could have too.
Yeah,
Ferrucci as well. He's been a NASCAR driver.
Yeah, Ferrucci's done some Xfinity races. Yeah. So.
Yep.
And
Has he done a cup race?
I thought he did one of the road courses last year in one of those like Helsingborg cars or whatever it was that.
You're thinking of Kvyat.
Kvyat did that. I thought
Kvyat
did one as well.
did that. Yeah. Ferrucci did a couple Xfinities. I know that. So
yeah.
I know RC Anderson did a cup race. So.
Yeah.
And he's a guy I haven't heard from anything this year, so we'll just have to.
Great talent.
Yeah, he was. Anyway, so we'll move on. Next, we'll talk about FIA Formula One. The latest season of Drive to Survive is out there to watch. You can go ahead and chronicle last year, one race at a time. Watching that on Netflix. I had it loaded up. Was watching some of that the other day. But, of course, we want to talk about the 2023 season and see whether or not we're going to have Max Verstappen three-peat as champion. So, Richard, we're off to Bahrain, start the season. So what should we be looking for in Formula One?
Well, we've been in Bahrain for just over a week now as the pre-season test was concluded Thursday, Friday, Saturday of last week. Again, immense reliability. I think over the 3 days, I think there was 2 on-track stoppages, red flags for actual mechanical issues. I think there was more red flags for system testing than there were actual issues. I mean, to make a long story short, Red Bull are going to dominate the start of the season. I think they've evolved their car from where they were in 2022. Which is the only way they can really do it under the budget cap now, especially as Red Bull, due to their misdemeanors previous years, have lost wind tunnel time and budget allocation for this year. So it's purely an evolution, but it's not a bad car from last year to evolve with, really. You got a pretty good basis there to work from. So I think they're going to be the team to beat. Ferrari sort of knocking on the door. Aston Martin have had a good preseason with Alonso. Obviously, Lance Stroll's participation in Bahrain is in question. I don't think he will if the rumours are true that he's broken his wrist, which I think Kevin Magnussen alluded to. It could be that Drugovich gets that seat there, which I think is fully deserved as an F2 front runner in previous years. But the Aston Martins look good. Mercedes, nobody really seems to know. A lot of people are saying that they had their engines turned down and they were sandbagging. But yeah, if anybody looks beyond Red Bull, they're clutching at the straws. I'm afraid. I think if the feedback from Red Bull is true, they've made a car that is more rounded to both drivers. Max, in his ungodly talent, likes a very pointy car, and I mean, by when I say pointy, I mean it's very front end active. All the brake bias will be thrown all the way to the front. He wants to make the front stop and then rotate the car through the corner. Not many drivers can drive a car like that, especially in modern day. Checo is the polar opposite to Max. He likes a car that squats at the rear, that's very stable at the rear, that will rotate through the corner early, and he can get the power down early. Whereas Max is very late on the brakes and rotates it through the lack of retardation at the rear of the car. Very impressive way of driving. Very, very hard way of driving. Checo last year couldn't get on top of that, and that's why he struggled at times. The rumours are, and what Red Bull have been saying, is that they've made a car that's more balanced now to both drivers. So, in theory, it should, give them an even stronger platform going into the season. If Checo can step up there and push Max and be a rear gunner for Max more than he was at times last year, then then Red Bull may get 1-2 in the championship that they've never had, despite all the success with the 4 World Championships for Seb and the 2 for Max. They've never had a 1-2 in the championship, so that's obviously high on their list of priorities for this year. And if it's true, if what they're saying is true, with the car suiting Checo more than it has in previous years, it's going to be pretty damn scary.
Yeah. So it looks like, from what you're telling me, is that Max's stiffest competition is going to come from his own teammate, not some guy named Hamilton or Leclerc. So that's got to be demoralizing for the other 18 guys out there.
Well, it can work two ways, though. In all fairness, Frank, it can work two ways. I've seen this with drivers. When Red Bull publicly turn around and say, "Oh, the car's more suited to Checo," that's a huge amount of pressure on Checo now. He's got to perform. There's no.
He does.
Yes. As talking about having Kyle Busch and Austin Dillon in the same car. There's nowhere for Austin to hide now, and there's nowhere for Checo to hide. If what they're saying is true, obviously they'll know internally the real dynamic of the car and how it's suited. But if it's true when they say, "Oh, this car is more suited to Checo," and he's not P2 on a regular basis, and Leclerc, Hamilton, Russell, Sainz are beating him, then it puts him in a very, very difficult position. And now you're starting to see, some real talent come through the Red Bull pack. I think Nick De Vries in the AlphaTauri has a real opportunity to lay claim to Checo's seat next year. If De Vries can come in and do what people expect of him, then Checo's got some real threat there. And it'll be interesting to see how he ups his game, because there was flashes of it last year when the car just suited him at certain tracks. Checo was on point, but he's got to do it. We saw it last year, didn't we? He started off the season well. He got a contract extension, and he disappeared for the middle quarter or middle half of the season, and did finish the year strong. I think he grabbed a couple of wins there at the end of the year, or a couple of strong performances. But this notion of the car suits him could be Red Bull putting even more pressure on him. In the past, they said, "Well, the car doesn't suit me," so he's had that excuse straight out the box.
Yeah, and I will not disagree on that at all, because you have Ricardo as your reserve driver, but De Vries is looking like more to be the guy. We saw the journey he had to go through, not go to Formula One right out of the gate. He delivered in Formula E, got a world championship down there. He had the superb debut that he got a top 10 at Monza, and the time when Latifi had no points. Yeah. So, and as for like Paris at Red Bull, AlphaTauri, you look at Tsunoda. It's a put up or shut up season for him, big time.
Yeah. I think last year was a big year for him when Franz Tost moved him out of the UK into Italy to be at the factory, to really put some pressure on him. I think it did help him. And the guy's got talent. There's no doubt about it. All 20 guys on the grid have got talent. It's just you're dealing in such fine percentage points of when we consider what that talent can produce on the track, that there's nowhere for these guys to hide now, especially when they're going up against known quantities, which these guys are doing now.
Yeah, it's so tough right now.
Yeah, I always find going back to Checo and Max, right? I always find the teammate dynamic very interesting to watch when one of those drivers is one of the best in the business. You know what I mean? And we've seen there's always one guy better than the other. Except for lightning in a bottle cases, like when you had Prost and Senna on the team at the same time. Yeah, that's you've got two guys that are the best in the world at the same time. And sometimes you have guys that are equal, that push one another, which is also great to see. And some of the pairings I think of there are like Mario Andretti and Ronnie Peterson, where those guys were, I want to say Ronnie as a pure Formula One driver was probably a little better than Mario, but Mario knew the details of that car because he did all the preseason testing, so he was better suited for the car. But when you think about like Schumacher, right? If you're teamed up with one of the best in the world, you got a couple of choices here. You could try to push him, or you can just fall in line and be a good soldier and help your teammates win multiple championships. When you look at Schumacher's case, you had Eddie Irvine, who was not a good soldier, He
No, he was not.
tried to push Michael, but then you get a Rubens Barrichello in there who's more than happy to play that number 2 man role, right? And the same thing with
Felipe Massa.
when we talk about Mercedes, right? We had Rosberg in there who pushed Lewis and ended up winning his own championship. He was able to actually defeat Lewis, right? But then we had Valtteri in there who was fine to be that number 2 man. Now we've got George Russell in there. And of course, the team's performance has slid a little bit, right? But, Hamilton is still considered one of the best in the world. But I see Russell as being this guy that's gonna push him. So
and I think
it's going to all that's just it's very the teammate dynamic is very interesting to me, like especially when you get 2 guys that don't necessarily get along, like Nigel Mansell and whoever his teammate was any given year, except Riccardo Patrese. He loved Mansell.
Yeah.
He was the only one.
I think one of the interesting sort of subplots we're going to see this year is actually going to be at Alpine, where we have now Pierre Gasly and Esteban Ocon. You're creating an all Gallic driver lineup for the French team there, and these guys don't get on. There's this instant assumption from everybody that if there's 2 people from the same nationality, you must be best friends. And I get that all the time. Living over here, somebody says, "Oh, I know a guy from England. You must be good friends." There's 65 million people who live in England. Trust me, I do not get on with all of them. In fact, most of them are complete arseholes.
King Charles, right?
No, he keeps texting me, but I never bother replying. But no, these guys don't get on, and it's going to be. I mean, Ocon can fall out with himself in an elevator, but with nobody else in there, I think he certainly has the ability to. He's the Joey Logano of F1, I think. Ocon can wind a lot of people up pretty quick. He has that air of immature arrogance about him, I think. You all look back at what he did to Max in Brazil a few years ago, and you just think
Forza India.
The guy's quick. Yeah, the guy's quick, but is he all that? I don't know. So that's going to be a fantastic battle with teammates there. I think that could come to a head a couple of times next year. And then, of course, the Haas teammates with Nico Hulkenberg and Kevin Magnussen. That's going to be another interesting battle to see where we go. But of course, we've got Logan Sargent making his debut. The first US driver since Alexander Rossi, full-time driver anyway. Probably full-time driver since. I mean, Rossi did have a full-time drive with Caterham, didn't he?
No,
he didn't.
A few races. Scott Speed drove the whole 06 year. Yeah.
Yeah, Scott Speed was probably the last full-time.
He was the last full-timer, and that's been.
It'll be interesting to see how Logan Sargent gets on. A lot of pressure on him, especially now with the new media interest in the US in Formula One. It said it's high. Is he good enough to step up? There's a lot of question marks there for sure.
But you got to wonder what's the benchmark for a new guy.
I think Alexander
in the Williams car, right? So are we talking if he gets some points, is that going to be considered successful or
Albon is a pretty good benchmark now, I think. Obviously he had his time at Red Bull, which probably didn't go as well as he wanted. He had that sabbatical for a year, and then he came back to the Williams for the last couple of years. And I'll be honest, Albon, I've been seriously impressed. He's stepped in. He's done a really good job in a difficult car to drive. He's outshone his teammate, on a fairly regular basis there. And, I think for Sargent, Albon is a really good benchmark. In the same way that, Kevin Magnussen was a great benchmark for Mick Schumacher last year. And because it proved, Mick's undoing there because he couldn't compete with Kevin on a regular basis. If Logan Sargent can't compete with Albon on a regular basis, then it's going to be very, very difficult for him to justify that seat long term. So that'll be an interesting, dynamic. And also, Oscar Piastri coming into McLaren, there was the quite public divorce between McLaren and Daniel Ricciardo. And then, of course, the movement of Piastri from Alpine or the Alpine stable anyway, to McLaren, and how Alonso left Alpine as well. So there's a lot going on there in those dynamics. So it'll be again, a bit like Alexander Albon, Lando Norris is now an established benchmark in Formula One. We know what we get with Lando. We know what we get with Alex. And they're great benchmarks for these two rookies coming in. If they can compete and show that they're not a million miles away from those guys, then they'll have a good season. But if they're constantly 4, 5, 6 tenths of a second a lap off in qualifying and race performance, then there's going to be some questions asked about them. But I think Piastri's got, and no disrespect to Logan Sargent, I think Piastri's got a little bit better pedigree than Sargent. And it'll be interesting to see how he does against an established teammate.
All right. Yeah. Piastri's pretty darn good. Now, Lee, you watch some Formula One, don't you?
I do. I watch a little bit more Formula One than I do IndyCar. So
all right. So I'd like to get your thoughts on who you're going to be looking at this season and what you're looking forward to seeing this year in Formula One.
I'm obviously again going to watch this season with a little bit different colored glasses on. I got a little bit more vested in watching it than just dropping through the channels and look, there's a race. Let me watch it. Definitely I'm looking forward to seeing what Red Bull has to do. They're obviously going to be the front runners for this season. Interested in the Mercedes cars, Hamilton and what he can bring. But my dark horse for the year, and I'm picking him every week from the rest of the season, is going to be Kevin Magnussen. I really think he's past couple of years he's not the winningest driver out there, but he's a consistent performer. I think he's he's going to be my guy. I'm going to be rooting for this year. So that's going to be my guy.
All right. So you heard it here first. Lee is picking Kevin Magnussen to win the season opener.
Yep.
So, Louise, who do you like to win the season opener?
I get the ball in my court. You know where I'm going with this. I'm going with
if you don't go with Max Verstappen, something's wrong with you. So
you gave me the ball.
Can we make a rule this year that you cannot pick Max Verstappen every week?
So we should say we're just gonna see every week in Formula One we'll pick who finishes second.
Right, exactly.
That would kind of be a little fun little twist on what we do here. So
I think we should pick who's going to be second this year.
All right,
in F1. So
Lee, who do you think is going to be second?
I'll go Kevin Magnussen. I mean,
Magnussen's going to finish first and second. All right, so and Louise, you give me your picks for 1 and 2. You already got Max for 1.
All right, Perez is 2.
Perez is 2. Richard, you're the expert here, so
Leclerc for 2.
Leclerc for 2. And me, if I say Hamilton finishes second. All right, so let's we're going to enjoy this coming weekend with all 3 major series in action. Now, Lee, NHRA is not going to be in action this week. That's correct.
That is correct. They start.
Okay, so but there were some. Oh, what do you say?
I think they're testing this weekend, aren't they?
Yeah, they're done testing this weekend. So looking forward to that. There's not a whole lot of technical changes. There's a couple rule changes, but and that's just NHRA. They don't I think the last major change they had was on the dragsters. They went from an open cockpit to the I call it the fighter jet cockpit. So the dragsters used to have an open cockpit, much like F1 and IndyCar. And a couple of years ago, safety concerns, they brought in a sealed cockpit. Basically, it looks just like a canopy out of a fighter jet. And that was, I think, 4 or 5 years ago. That was the last major, real rules change, safety change that they did. Not a whole lot this year as far as safety and rules changes. And that's just typically NHRA. They don't do a lot of changes unless safety warrants it. So they do it.
An interesting note on safety is that the NHRA was the first series to mandate the Hans device.
Yep. Which
is kind of funny because the guys were getting killed left and right in NASCAR. They didn't want to make that thing mandatory. Oh, it's too bulky to put that thing on my shoulders. Yeah, well, I mean, a coffin's pretty bulky too, but I mean, but I always applaud the NHL or NHRA for being the first to kind of embrace that. Because the sad thing is, how many guys did we lose when that device was really around in prototype form since about 1987? And then they had fully functioning ones by the middle 90s, but it wasn't until 2001, 2002 until we made these things mandatory in the other sports.
Over an ARCA wreck.
Yeah. I mean, even killing off Dale Sr. wasn't good enough to mandate it yet. So Anyway, Lee, that just popped in my head when we were talking about safety.
No, it's a great
and the canopy, which I think looks really cool on the dragsters. Again, I don't watch a lot of NRA, but as a kid, I used to love building models of dragsters because they're just so much different than any other kind of race car, I still remember I had one was Big Daddy Don Garlitz. I'd built that model and I was very proud of it. So
I had a Kenny Bernstein dragster as model as a kid. That was
Kenny Bernstein.
Budweiser car. So so we got some testing this coming weekend, and then after that it's full force in Gainesville, Florida, and looking forward to what the season has to bring. Pro stock bikes, like we talked about last week, the Hayabusa Suzuki is probably the biggest change across the board as far as like body styles and stuff like that. So 200 miles an hour on a motorcycle is pretty quick, and I'm looking forward to seeing what that can do for the Vance and Hines guys.
I know what it can do. Don't worry.
Oh yeah, it's quick.
What it can do.
Yeah, it's super quick. It's gonna be a fun ride. Those other guys on the Harleys they're gonna have their hands full trying to stop these Vance and Hines guys. So
I'll tell you, Well, we are just about out of time. There's a few more things we want to mention here. Now, Lee, you've got some news about one of our longtime listeners that's battling some illness.
Yeah, and it's his birthday. So Dan Antonelli, thanks for being an awesome fan of the show. Want to just reach out, wish you a happy birthday. We're with you, buddy. He's a Granite Stater just like me. So happy birthday, bud, and thumbs up for you.
Yeah, good luck to you, Dan. We appreciate you listening to us. So then the other thing we wanted to mention, because our producer Keith Hayes is a big New England Patriots fan, Tom Brady, who is considered by some to be the GOAT, is actually has a little bit of involvement in the World Endurance Series, the WEC. His clothing brand, the Brady Clothing, is going to be an associate sponsor on the Porsche team in the upcoming WEC events. So will we see Brady at some of these races? I don't know. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I don't know how hands-on he is with the clothing company, or if he just loans his name to it. But and again, anything Tom Brady loans his name to, hey man, that's the GOAT. So, and here's his name is going to be on that Porsche car in the Hypercar Series. So, well, now we are out of time. So we don't even have enough time for a green-white checker. So we'll just cruise to the finish line. But I want to thank you, Lee and Richard, and I want to thank you, Louise. Keith Hayes, my producer, I want to thank you as well. I want to thank Forza Motorsport. I want to thank Facebook Live, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, iTunes, Spreaker, all those folks that carry us. Most of all, though, I want to thank you folks that watch us. I just love it when I used to say folks that listen to us, but now thank you folks that watch us every week and on the replays. But until next week, good night.
Good night.
Thanks for watching Drafting the Circuits. Make sure to follow Drafting the Circuits on Facebook, Spotify, Twitter, and YouTube. Drafting the Circuits is a Code Sinister One production.